Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 1 of Fire on the Mountain, where I'm going to take a brief but personal and informative look at the before and after and the current situation of the LA fires. My focus is going to be more on the Palisades Fire, as it's an area I'm pretty familiar with and it's much closer to our house in Lake Balboa than the Eaton Fire. I've been through and around the Palisades countless times. Will Rogers Beach has been our family beach since we first moved out there. We drove down Sunset through Palisades Village many trips, occasionally stopping for coffee, grabbing beach snacks and stuff like that. My son has been to the same beach half a dozen times. I have no idea what the status is of the beach or the lush strip of land that expanded up from the hills east of the Temescal Canyon Road. There's a good chance it's burnt down. It'll be emotional to find out and more emotional to see it firsthand at some future date. The only time I experienced a wildfire was when we lived in Burbank in 2016. The Stevenson Ranch fire burned around 1,000 acres and the flames were visible at night from our apartment. The smoke also was very apparent in the air. The recent fires came as no shock. There were lots of warnings. The Malibu fire burned a few months ago not far away. What was a shock was the severity, the destruction, and the emotional toll. Comparing the recent LA fires to any other disasters in other major cities or across America is not an apple-to-apple comparison. LA is widely different from any other urban city in America and maybe even the world. LA's geography has shaped the city's organization more than any other one factor historically. Water, of course, has been a key element in LA's makeup and development, and certainly would seem important when discussing fires, but water was in high supply before these fires. Geography, though, has made LA a massively sprawled, unique, and often hard for outsiders to understand place. LA is a city that people who have never visited have strong positive and negative opinions about. Certainly, we've seen both sides of this in the mainstream media and also on social media, and it's certainly flared up during these fires. And hopefully I can open up some eyes just a little bit with some local and personal perspective. While most cities in the U.S. of any size are laid out on flat ground and spread out somewhat proportionally into the suburbs, Los Angeles is nothing like that. The familiar grids of cities like New York, Chicago, and other major metro areas look only partially like LA. When LA first began its explosive development in the 1920s, the city did mimic the urban design of other major metropolises for a short decade or so. And while the city spreads in all directions, its northwest expansion pushed it toward the still rugged Elysian and Franklin Hills, now Silver Lake and Los Feliz neighborhoods, and further to the Los Feliz Hills and west to the Hollywood Hills. These areas are all a part of the Santa Monica Mountains, which stretch 40 miles from western Malibu on the Pacific Ocean to the Hollywood Hills and areas like the Elysian and Franklin Hills, which continue on to the northwest edge of downtown. The Santa Monica Mountains is also where the Pacific Palisades is and where the Palisades Fire has burned almost 25,000 acres. Back to this northwest expansion, that was fueled by the wealthy, and many of them set their sights on the hills as an ideal and beautiful place to build their mansions. While this building in the hills and mountains was limited at the time due to the inability of vehicular power for construction, service, and residential vehicles to get up the hills, that all changed post-World War II. Cars and trucks could now easily climb the hills, and building in these mountains and canyons took off. Large homes, mansions, apartment complexes, and even laid-out neighborhoods were built and continue to be. Some areas of the Palisades that were forests and open space not long ago were developed into neighborhoods up until the late 1980s, adding thousands of new homes to this once natural and green space. Many of these homes were obviously decimated in the recent fire. This mountainous geography is, of course, a large reason why the Palisades Fire was so devastating and destructive. The Pacific Palisades' proximity to the ocean and lush mountainsides and canyons made it a paradise, but also a tinderbox in today's climate change world. Overbuilding in an area like this is just one piece of a tragic puzzle of these wildfires in Southern California. What also needs to be remembered as we look at these fires is that while homes, businesses, and structures have been wiped out, the majority of damage has been forest, parkland, and open space. This brings us back to the unique geography of LA. A wonderful aspect of living in such a special city like LA is its accessibility to nature, and not just typical urban parks like Central Park or the 3 major boulevard parks in Chicago, parks that are massive in scale and connected. Within a typical hour or so drive of downtown LA, you can access state and national parks that equal the size of Delaware and feel as secluded and untamed as many of the more famous national parks, but of course are surrounded by millions of people and homes. Tens of thousands of homes creep up into these hills. So while media without fail will go to horrific footage of houses burning and streets looking like a bomb went off, 85% of these two major fires happened in state and national parks. This leads us to the next points of this unique geography in Southern California and these climate fires: growth, overbuilding, and deforestation. Both the Eaton and Palisades fires happen in areas that are heavily bordered by massive national, state park, and forest land. Neighborhoods, business areas, and schools have been overbuilt in these locations that should have far less housing. And the truly scary part is that these two communities are amongst around 40 others in LA County that consist of the same makeup, geography, and potential conditions for tragic wildfires just like these. The fires would have still destroyed homes, and we'll look at related points in an upcoming episode, but certainly less houses on the mountainsides and in the canyons would have meant less personal property damage, less toxic smoke, and less stresses on the LA and California responders and emergency providers. Hopefully that provides a little more detailed perspective on the local landscape of where the fires happened. You can certainly get on Google Maps and Wikipedia and take a look for yourself. In the next episode, we'll look at a hotly discussed aspect of these fires and one partially affected by the landscape and geography of the area: air quality.